So hi, this is Bethany Gagné, founder of the Albany Peace Project, and I'm fortunate enough to again be here with John Welshons. And John and I were talking about such important things regarding integrating meditation and spirituality into our everyday lives. We just said, let's do another one. So, so John, can we talk about what you and I were just talking about? And that is this idea that people think as though they don't have enough time to meditate. And can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, it's interesting, as I was telling you a minute ago, when I started teaching in 1975, I would suggest that people meditate twice a day for at least 15 or 20 minutes and work their way up to 45 to 50 minutes twice a day. And, 40 years ago, they would say, okay, well, how long do I take to do that? And I said, maybe over the course of a couple of years, you work your way from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. And they say, fine, Now people look at me as if I'm crazy if I suggest that. And they say, where would I find that much extra time in my day? So I think that what we have to understand is that generally when someone says that to me, I'll say, well, are you happy? And they say, no, I'm a neurotic, nervous wreck.
Right.
And so something has got to change.
Right.
And there has to be a moment at which we start to realize that our happiness and our peace of mind and our ability to experience love and joy in life is more important than many of the things that we are doing that are keeping us so busy we don't think we have time to meditate.
Right.
So you start to realize that when you sit to meditate, even once a day, you start to create a cumulative effect. That is, each time you have the opportunity to touch your own inner light, your own inner peace, that place inside all of us where love and joy exists. Each time we touch that, we have the opportunity to go a little deeper and a little deeper. And that starts to become the most important part of our life. And then we start to realize when we come out of meditation that we feel different, that things don't upset us as much as they used to.
Absolutely.
That it's easier to deal with difficult people than it used to be.
Yeah.
That we don't have the same level of fear and anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. People should know that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And because it's all inside us, every human being has, if you will, infinite love, infinite joy, infinite peace in their own being. That is the essence of what is sometimes called the soul. But we could look at it as just a state of awareness, that it's awareness itself that's free of thought and free of opinion, and it's just isness. And we have the opportunity, when we meditate, to go into that place inside ourselves, and then it starts to change our entire life.
Yes, yes. And then you notice yourself when you're in a more static place, right? Mm-hmm. So then you kind of catch being static. So then you say, very quickly, you can say, I'm going to realign myself, and just kind of go do a meditation. And it's very cost effective, right? Where you become more efficient at it, right?
Absolutely. One of the funny things is that when I talk to new students about quieting their mind and, in Buddhism, in nirvana, the state of nirvana could be described as the state between thoughts, state of awareness between thoughts. And sometimes people who are intellectually oriented, will say, does that mean I'm going to lose my mind? And, I'll say, well, maybe temporarily, but it'll come back. Don't worry, it's not going to go anywhere.
That's a good point.
But the interesting thing is really, seriously, that there have been studies that have shown that people with a regular meditation practice actually see an increase in their IQ. Maybe not dramatic, but it doesn't go down.
Yeah, right, that's true.
So that it's sort of like the idea of giving your brain a rest, and if you do that on a regular basis, it's going to come back into action much more clear, much more stable.
Yeah.
And, we all know the experience, for instance, of trying to think of something that we can't remember. We can't remember it. We can't remember. We know it. We can't remember. We get so frustrated.
Right.
And the harder we try,
Yep.
the less chance we have of remembering it.
Right.
And when you absolutely relax and forget about it,
it
rises up to the surface.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can trust that your mind will not become less useful, but actually more useful.
Yeah, it becomes more sharper. I find myself more aware of things than I would have been in the past, and I'm just sharper. My peripheral vision, I seem to pick up more.
Right.
You've noticed that too, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Sure.
no doubt. So it is cost effective, this time that we put in. Can you give people other examples of, we were talking before about making our cars support our practice, making our home support our practice. Can you talk more about that? That was a wonderful thing.
Sure. Well, I think that one of the things that we need to do is take a look at what it is in our lives that is causing us agitation, and whether, I'm not an advocate of being so detached from the world that you don't know what's going on, because I don't think that's particularly useful. But sometimes people are taking in too much. Maybe they're watching too much news, or they're listening to too much talk radio, or they're listening to music that actually is causing stress in their body.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, you can't even stand in line at a bank without seeing screens at you.
Right. Right.
There's nowhere you to go where you're not getting information kind of like put into your senses, whether you want it to or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So meditation takes us into this place inside ourselves that's just quiet and peaceful and beautiful, and it's always available.
Always.
So we can start to look at what it is in our daily life that isn't supporting our practice, that's causing more agitation. Maybe it's, your home life. Maybe you might want to make your living space a little more simple, a little more orderly, a little more something that supports your practice. I love having a statue of the Buddha, because a nice statue of the Buddha is actually designed by the sculptor to be a physical depiction of peace. So you look at that statue of the Buddha, and the Buddha's just sitting there so blissful, and you say, ooh, that looks good, I think I'd like that too.
Right.
And then you have more and more of that in your home environment, and then maybe instead of watching so much, kind of meaningless television,
yeah, absolutely.
You listen to CDs or audio programs of good spiritual teachers, who are talking to you from a place of peace and calmness and love, and you start to feel that vibration in your life. So instead of the people who are trying to get you angry all the time and make you frightened all the time, you're listening to people who are coming from that place of equanimity.
Yeah.
And you just hear it in people's voices.
Right.
So then you can carry that into your car, instead of listening to whatever it is you listen to. Either try maybe classical music, or beautiful Indian music, or New Age music, something that's very soothing.
Right.
Or listen to really good spiritual teachers when you're driving back and forth to work.
Yes.
And then when you get to your work environment, have something in your work environment that's a reminder of your practice. And maybe during the day you start to find moments here and there that you can carve out to just sit and be at peace and meditate for a few minutes.
Yes.
I used to, when I had an office job, I used to put a do not disturb sign on my office door.
Right.
And I come into work actually early in order to meditate for a while in my office, because I wanted to set that vibration in the workplace. And at first, people that worked with me thought it was a little odd, but they got used to it.
Right.
And after a day or two, they had just learned to ignore it.
Right.
And then there were, occasionally people who said, what is it you're doing in there? Can I learn that practice?
Right.
So, and then people around you will see, well, maybe what you're doing seems a little peculiar, but my goodness, you seem much happier. You seem much more peaceful.
Yes. And then noticing that, right? I mean, I remember when I first got to a point where I recognized that if I opened up a book, my mood would, and it was a positive, affirming book, when I closed the book, I was in a much different space.
Sure.
So just recognizing that, and then that was like, oh, okay, I should read more. So recognizing what affirms what's in, and what I love about everything you're saying is that you're talking about setting up these kind of props in our lives that will kind of invoke from within us this beautiful space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're kind of setting it up so in each room you go into or whatever, something is beckoning us from that space, beckoning that space within.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And reminding us that, if you sort of keep the reminders around so that when you start to feel off balance and you're starting to freak out about something, there's the Buddha sitting there as peaceful as can be. And
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'd like more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just again tell you a little bit about John's books here. We've got One Soul, One Love, One Heart, and your website is named that, right?
One Soul, One Love.
Oh, onesoulonelove.com.
Mm-hmm.
When prayers aren't answered, John always answers the tough questions in life. That's what I love about his work. And Awakening from Grief. So, John, thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
I know, this
What a
has
delight.
been fun. I'm so glad we get connected. And he's going to be leading us in a meditation as well. Do you have any idea of what orientation for this meditation you'll use?
Love.
Nice. Can't get better than that, right? I know.
I don't know anything better.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Stay tuned
Thank
for
you.
that. Take care.